Welcome back, guys. So hope you guys enjoyed the last video of the Woolwoods, but this video is all about the engine. Finally got it back. Here's the 98 split thrust bearing block I was able to find on eBay. Decided to go with this one because I want to try out the split thrust bearing design. Less prone to crank walk, whatever the myths are, I want to try it. So I got Wastegate HD pistons with the ceramic coating on top with mainly rods. Did go Eagle for the beginning of the build, but they didn't really work out for what we were trying to do. And point is, I ended up with the mainlays. So I'm happy with those. And my clearances were on the high side of 2000, so I'm going to be running 15W40 or 15W50 full synthetic on this guy. And here's my head, basically a Gse head. So stock valves, Gse seals, Gse beehives, and to go along with those beehives, I have the Gse S1 cams. Those hit my target goals. This car originally was hitting 410 horsepower and I loved it, and I think this max maybe I'll hit 450. I don't plan on going any more than that because then other stuff starts breaking. And I'm going with the OEM MLS head gasket. I was going to do composite, but recommended by the engine builder, so I'm going to go with him, with his recommendations. My old engine, I ran a Cometic on a stock rebuild, and I had no problems with that. So the finishes on the block and the bottom of the head are well, so I'm not worried about that. Picked up some new Craftsman torque wrenches. They were on sale at Sears. Here's my FP green turbo. Was double checking stuff on the wastegate, making sure my springs weren't messed up because I was hearing some chattering, but it's all good. New gaskets, new oil cooler lines from G&J Aircraft, and this thing, I think it's called Pegasus Racing. So what they do is they make a one-piece fitting that if you've ever tried to do an oil pressure gauge on this thing, if you can't knock out one of those Allen heads like I did, because I don't know what kind of master Mitsubishi sealant they use, Pegasus makes this British standard pipe thread tapered to 1/8 MPT. So on this end you run your gauge sensor, and I have it over there, and then on the side you can plug in your original pressure sensor, and it makes it look clean. It's small. You know, no more T fittings and Earl fittings and all that stuff. There's my sandwich, and I'm going with the ACL Orbital because I didn't want to rebuild my old one. I wasn't able to open up the gearing because I had an oil failure on the last one, but I think this is gonna do well. So I'm just gonna pop this open for my balance shaft thingy that goes in here, and I'll hit it with some red line assembly lube. And I think, and I'm also running L19 ARPs, so that with the MLS I think should have a good seal. Probably going to be running maybe max 27 pounds. So we'll see. Should be a fun build. So I'll probably just prep a bunch of stuff, and then tomorrow my friend will help me tying down the head, and I'm waiting for my 3-bond gasket sealant. I don't know why I've been going back and forth with 3-bond and ultra gray. Obviously if used properly, I would assume they seal right. The last time I did an engine build, my last engine, don't remember what I used. Might have just all been RTD black, to be honest. I really don't remember. It's been that long, but I didn't get any leaks. So that sealant doesn't come in for a few days. So if I'm impatient, I'll probably just use the ultra gray. If something else occurs, I'll wait. But let's get into it. Fast forward a few days from the intro. Here's my turbo setup. This is what I've been able to get done since I got the engine. I need to replace the exhaust gaskets on the wastegate as well as the main one. This one was leaking and I replaced it with new tile ones, and the hardware needed Allens because the other ones were hex. I don't remember how I got them on the first time. That was probably like 4 years ago. So had to weld a socket and a wrench combo thing, but got Allen heads on there now. And I run a FP manifold and an FP green turbo. And I was also able to complete the balance shaft on the ACL orbital pump. Just need to put in the plug. And this came in. So this is what I was talking about in the intro. This is the equivalent to Mitsubond, which is 50 bucks, but this is 16 bucks on Amazon. And this is what I was going to use if I was being impatient, but this came in luckily because I was got busy with work at school for a few days, so going to use this on all the gaskets. So I decided to record as much as I could on this build so I could probably help somebody else out. I got a bunch of tips on YouTube from other guys, so help you guys out. So this is a 2G rear main seal that goes to my engine. My original car, I think I put a gasket on there only because the Falpro kit at the time came with one, and this time I'm just going to use a 3-bond and seal it how the manual says to call, or says to do so. Here's the rear main seal. I just popped it out. Got an OEM one. Please get OEM gaskets as much as possible because I bought this crappy brand, and I only call it crappy because basically when you look at the quality of pretty much everything, I might only use just the valve cover gasket, but everything else is really dinky. This is more for like a basic rebuild that your grandma's gonna drive a DSM engine, and this really isn't that much more. It's probably 140 bucks for everything, but I think I spent 100 just for what I needed. That's not including the head gasket I got that was separate, and intake manifold gasket, and the exhaust manifold gasket. So besides those three, get OEM. You can tell you can feel the difference, and I'm sure they hold up a lot better. This I want to say is Velcro, because it says made in Japan, but I don't think this is OEM. Oh, when I compared it to the one I have, the markings are different, and so here it is. Just gonna clean it up. Let me tighten everything with the wrench this time. So rear main seal is in. I use the OEM seal. A little bit of assembly lube right here, just so when it starts cranking over, there's not that much friction on there, so there's less friction on here. And then just enough sealant. I didn't go with the gasket this time, so I just went with the 3-bond. Torqued them down to 8 pounds, and it just comes out just a hair. So let the bead do its work, or the RTV do the work. No need to cream it or to cake it on there. So it looks pretty cool. So now I'll put it back on the engine stand and we'll do the head. Before I slap the head on, I was double checking 2 bolts that I wasn't sure if they were tightened after I got it back from the engine shop. So this one I was able to break loose really easy. They didn't really feel tight, so I went ahead and used thread sealant for that one, and on the opposite side, that one. That's the I'm not sure if that's a British pipe thread or half-inch pipe, but either way, this is a plug for the coolant, and I think I have to trim this off because I remember trim the opposite side and I don't want to tighten it anymore. I think this was for the FP green intake housing, or the cool side. But so the rear main seal is on. I'm actually going to go ahead and install the oil pump, and then I can flip it around, put my strainer, oil pan, and then come back around, and then just stay up here up top so I don't have to keep going back and forth. Alright, so we got it nice and coated. Got the oil pump on, bolted down, oil filter housing also torqued down. So we got 17 pounds here and 14 pounds there. I just prepped the deck of the block. I cleaned it the best I could. I lubed the cylinders and I put the locating dowels in. Cleaned up all my ARP L19s, and I'm about to put a little dab of lube on there, snug them in the block. And here is the head. Clean that off too. I was making sure there wasn't anything seeping through that would mess it up. Got the head torqued down to 95 pounds. ARP L19s looking pretty in there. These are the Gse beehives. And now I'm going to clean up these lifter ports and throw those in there. And while I'm at it, I'm gonna actually throw a cover on here. So I think this is where most people drop hardware into their pistons and realize it after the car started, because there's an open port there, the 4 spark plugs, a giant one right here, dead set in the middle, and the other one over here. So I'm definitely going to cover that up because I don't want that to happen. Good morning, guys. Next day, couldn't finish the head. It was 3 a.m. when I got done. But anyways, water pump is on, torqued down. Last thing I was able to do was just clean off all the journals and any gunk that I saw inside the head. And the lifters, I bled them and cleaned them, so they're soaking in the 15W50 full synthetic oil that I will be running. And the rocker arms, or the rockers, are also sitting in the oil. So now let's get this thing done. Gonna put some cams in and torque it down. All the lifters are in. They're all bled out, so they should all have spring to them. If not, pull them out, throw your paper clip in there, make sure you get all the oil or air that's trapped in there. Because one time, somebody else installed them for me and my valve train was not happy. All it was doing was clicking. Doing the final torque on the camshaft caps, inside out. I went 16 pounds. I think manual says 14, 15. And there it is. Cams are installed. Cool. Now we're back onto the timing side. So I was just double checking my arm clearance for any of the crank or the cam sensors. I haven't done them in a while. So I was making sure I was clear of everything before I bolted that down. So I'm installing the crank angle sensor, 7 pounds, as well as the camshaft sensor. Fast forward a little bit, setting the timing right now. I went with the Gates boob out. Yeah. finally got the timing set. I took the tool out so I can properly tension the belt now, and doing the method where after you tighten everything, the grenade pin should be floating freely without the assistance of that rod. And currently have this guy in there, so I'm going to wait a little bit and then recheck my torque on here and put the belt tension. But it looks sweet with that Gates belt. It's been a few days back in the garage. Had to take a break because some things weren't working out the way I wanted to, but nonetheless. So the first things first, I had a 95 2G DSM block, because this oil baffle fits on here, but it doesn't fit on my new block, which is a 98 block. So once again, I had to order another part from Extreme PSI. So this thing plus the hardware for it. And then I was also cleaning this out, and I noticed that it was cracked and some places were rubbing from my first build. So when I was trying to fit it, that hole's blown out and there's some cracks in it. So decided to get a brand new one, because I don't want, because I'm running the fluid dye dampener, and I just want to make sure that nothing's hitting. So I might trim this up. Shout out to my mom for the burrito. So yeah, I'll fit this so you can see the difference there. I'd say it's worth the 42 bucks in Extreme PSI for this. And then the other thing that I'll get into is, so I noticed my belt was actually coming off of one side, and I think I talked about it earlier. So I need this piece. The other piece that goes to the block is discontinued, but you can still replace this. And I was wondering what the bushing is that they say is the play. So I'm assuming it's this thing. So I'll put this on, set the timing again, and see how much play there is. And then if it's not how I like it, I'll probably I have some spare polyurethane bushings or something just to fill it in. And see if it eats up any of the play, because the belt isn't really sitting properly. But first things first, burrito time. And then, picked up the cap because I think all DSMs leak. Somebody said this one, the Evo one, won't leak, but we'll see. Forum trolls were right. So here's the new piece. So it was like I said, this belt was, as I was turning it to check the timing, it was starting to go over to towards the engine, and then it was hitting, the belt was hitting down here on the oil pump. So the part that I got, this is the new part, and I mic'd it, and it was a little bit tighter, this one was, versus, so here's the old one, and just for a quick comparison, the washer and nut isn't on there, so that eats up a lot of the slack, but just fitting it. So here's the old one. I don't know if the lighting kind of sucks right now, but there is a lot of play even without the washer and bolt. Then I clean this off. So this is the part that Mitsubishi discontinued, this part right here, so you can no longer get it. And I thought it was a pretty critical part, because this is a machine surface, and if this starts to wear out, then we really are screwed. But I'm sure somebody will come up with a bushing insert for this thing in case you ever need it, or I might even look into making something for this. So here's a new one, and it already felt a lot firmer, and you can't, the video doesn't do it justice, but there's basically, see, as I'm pulling, as I was trying to get that play was pulling the actual arm out instead of wobbling side to side. So that makes me feel a little bit better that this $40 part wasn't a waste. So I'm just gonna grease it up just a little bit, and then I'll bolt it down and then see if it stops hitting right along this side. It could also be, not sure if it's because it's an orbital pump, but I don't think it should be hitting down in there. And then I'll do the timing again and rotate it and see if it doesn't jog off to the left. Set the tension, did the grenade trick or grenade pin trick where it rotates freely. But with the new tensioning arm, let's see if we got to get it. Belt is not walking anymore. Because by now it would have already walked all the way towards the cams. Oops. So I'm pretty sure I already did a full rotation. Yeah. So that's a full rotation. Everything's back to timing marks. Oh, almost. There. Can't wait to start this thing. Oh. Get it back to top dead. Oh, whew. I screwed something up. Oh, shit. Oh, those are the sprocket covers, or the spark plug covers. Alright, so one more turn. It's like looking at the inside of a beating heart. Pretty cool. So everything's back to top dead center. So after using Extreme PSI kit, can't emphasize enough how easy timing is with these three. So this helps line up your cams. This puts the tension so you can torque down the tensioner pulley. So you got top dead center, and you got on the plate lined up to there, and this line lined up to the imaginary balance shaft. So I got rid of the pulley moving over, and you can't see it, but it's about a 1/16 of an inch away. So, got the motor flipped around, and now I got to put, this is the new plate. This is the one for, I guess, the late 95.5 DSM 2Gs. I didn't know that. Just painted the oil pan. So here's where I had to bang it out for the ARP studs. Some people say they had to do it, some others don't, but in my case I had to. And this is the plug I was talking about. Right now I painted it this color so I can see if any leaks occur, and plus I had spare paint of this color, so it worked out. So now I'm gonna install it. Got the cover on, double checked everything, make sure everything cleared, no issues. So here's my fluidine dampener and the ARP bolts. Gonna torque these down to 18 pound-foot. Got the belts all situated and tightened down. With the fluidine dampener, I had to notch just a little bit off the alternator to get it to be able to get the belt to slip over. But then after that, adjustment was the same. Tensioned, AC bracket tensioned. Cleaned up the intake manifold a little bit. I'm running my friend's Toyota nut on here, so I'm going to tighten that down, and then I still have to. I won't do this until I do the new valve cover seals, and then I'm going to throw the intake manifold, and then I'll lift it off and put the flywheel, and she's done. Today's the day the engine goes in. So what I didn't record was I just put on the oil return line, and I secured all the fasteners to the valve cover and all the hardware for that. This one's running a 30mm bolt. These are 25mm. Reason being is because 2/3 of these are stripped on the valve cup on the head. So that last third with slightly taller bolt or longer bolt, I was able to catch some threads. And with the stainless steel ones, I was able to grip it a little bit better. So everything's on that I want to put on before the engine goes on. And I'm going to put the flywheel and clutch, and then my friend let me borrow this engine balancer thing so I'm going to try to get the transmission from TMZ Performance with the engine all in one shot for the first time ever. Don't know how it'll go, but we'll try it. Is inside the car finally. So next thing is to add the transfer case, and then either my exhaust or my front subframe, and that'll be, and then after that then I can do the axles, and that's all I need to do on the bottom. Alright, I haven't been showing all the boring stuff like the transfer case, subframe, and all that stuff being installed, but I have been getting asked a lot on how I have a left-hand drive front subframe. Well, what we did was I have a right-hand drive subframe, but what we did is we cut the left-hand drive mounting brackets for the rack and pinion, so left those in position. We cut those off, and then we cut the right hand drive ones off because the rack and pinion would be on this side. And then because technically they're identical parts except for the Evo one has it's formed for the tunnel, so I think they stamped the top piece and then they welded the bottom piece during manufacturing. Those were the two differences right there. But so I have the right hand drive front subframe, and the brackets, because they're it's the same arch going all the way across for both of them, these just lined up because we kept the rack and pinion in the same position and just tacked them and make sure everything turned left and right, and it worked out, and we just welded them up. So that's how I have a right hand drive subframe but it's a left hand drive now, and I wanted to keep it that way so I'm unsuspicious when I'm driving around in this part of the world. So yeah, it's almost all in. Radiator, intercooler piping, and I'll start it. Alright, Sunday fun day. Today's the day. So everything's on. I'm gonna go get I lost a nut for the blow-off valve, but that's it. Distilled water's in. Crappy oil's in, just for the first 20-minute startup. I want to show you guys. Here's my oil pressure. I'm gonna have it inside the engine, or inside the car. So before I start it, here's the harness for the gauge, and there's what the Pegasus Racing fitting with the pressure gauge sensor. So that I'll just be tying into with this part of the gauge, and then the other side goes to the back side of this gauge, and just power ground. And if I want the optional lighting, I'm just gonna go get a 3-amp fuse because my battery's in the back and I have to extend the wires. I don't know if I need a relay also, but try it out. So engine starts. So I'm gonna do the 20-minute oil break-in through the system, and then I'll dump it. But what I didn't show was I primed it. I took the pressure sensor off, and I pumped oil through there until it made its way to the head. And once it was in there, I felt comfortable enough to give it a few cranks, and then I installed the injectors and the spark plug wires, and then I gave it a crank. So here, so the battery's dead, but let me start my stopwatch. I was gonna do, like I said, I already did about 6 minutes, so I'm going to do another stopwatch. So I have my pressure gauge hooked up kind of ghetto. There you go. And then the only other ones I care about are my vacuum, which I'm sure I'll have a few leaks, but I'll fix that later. So we're holding at about 90 PSI. To do this for about 2,000 RPM, maybe 2,500. And I'll check for leaks right now once it warms up a little bit. Alright, got her up to temperature. Oil pressure dropped because it's at operating temperature, which is a good thing. No leaks. Still a little rough on the idle. I'm not worried about that as long as it runs. No leaks. Running fully. So I am running Gse 1 cams and the Beehive spring, so and I don't hear any valve tick because I have the top line 3M lifters. So now it's been already about 20 minutes. There's my idle. It's a little low, and everything seems to be good. I don't have the laptop hooked up to the Stinger, the ECU. There's not much I could do on it anyways right now, but I'll dump this oil. I'm gonna go ahead and end the video here. Reason being is clutch won't engage, and the reason why that is because I ordered an all-wheel drive flywheel by mistake. I have a 106 tooth front wheel drive flywheel that I used to have on here, and I was assuming they were the same thing. And it's not that it won't start because the diameters are, I believe, ½ inch smaller. I think it's the how far out the flywheels sit. So I'm gonna drop the trans, pull the flywheel out, and compare it to the one I have, and go from there, because I got a new clutch master and a new slave and bled it, and it still doesn't feel like it's right. Battery's charged up. Let's give it a crank. Thanks for watching. Next video, I'll do the flywheel adjustment and see what the difference is between the all-wheel drive and front-wheel drive. I know diameters are different, but the height on how far it sticks out from the crank, that's what I'm curious, because that's the only thing that's stopping me from driving it. And this annoying clicking that's coming from the fuel tank. But I'll have to pop open the fuel pump and see what I did wrong there. So stay tuned for the next video.